Welcome to Part 5 of The Little-Known Drivers of Easter, a series of reflections for Lent. I'm John Bridges, the author of The Blood of Innocents. I'm a Christian minister, and I've spent several years studying the history of the life and death of Jesus of Nazareth. Between now and Easter Sunday, I'm reading a series of short pieces of historical fiction, extracts from The Blood of Innocents. They're the sort of conversations and observations that were happening among the people who saw Jesus in Jerusalem and, of course, had no idea how the story would end. It will, I hope, help us rediscover why, with hindsight 2,000 years later, we still do Easter at all. Last week we looked at how Jesus' attack on the money changers would have been interpreted. Jesus' action in the temple left the religious authorities with a quandary. Only the Romans could execute Jesus, and upsetting the high priest wasn't a crime in Roman eyes. Apart from worshipping the emperor, which was compulsory, the Romans just didn't do God. So imagine, then, a Hebrew lawyer, let's call him Eleazar, being sent by Caiaphas the high priest to get Jesus to publicly oppose Roman rule, which most definitely was a capital offence. The crowds were thinner late in the afternoon, but as Jesus walked to the gate, a large crowd was still with him. Jesus, however, recognized Eleazar. "Teacher of Israel," Jesus smiled, "we meet again. You're well?" "Indeed I am, Rabbi, and we have another question for you," said Eleazar. "A conundrum upon which many of us would like your advice." Jesus had stopped about 6 feet in front of Eleazar, and the crowd closed around them, straining to hear. "Teacher, we know you are a man of integrity," Eleazar began loud enough so that the crowd could hear. "You teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it right we should pay taxes to Caesar?" There was a buzz in the crowd. For those hoping Jesus was Messiah, here was a moment to call for war against Rome. Jesus paused, while the crowd quietened. "Is he pausing for thought or for dramatic effect?" wondered Eleazar. "You hypocrites!" Jesus laughed, looking the lawyer in the eye. "Why are you trying to trap me?" He held out his hand. "Someone bring me a denarius. Let me look at it." Jesus glanced around as several people frantically looked for a coin. Perhaps one day they could tell their grandchildren about their own unique part in Jesus' story. As if he hasn't seen a denarius before, thought Eleazar. A young man almost threw himself forward to be the first with the coin. Jesus thanked the man and examined the coin closely. The crowd held their breath. Then he turned it over and examined the other side too. The tension rose higher. Finally Jesus looked up, glanced around the crowd, and then looked at Eleazar ahead of him. "Whose portrait is this on the coin?" he asked Eleazar. "And whose inscription?" "Caesar's," replied Eleazar. "Then pay back to Caesar what is Caesar's," Jesus announced in a loud voice, then adding, "and to God what is God's." There was silence for a few moments. Then a burst of laughter at the back of the crowd. Another man started to applaud. As more people saw the significance, there was more laughter and applause. Jesus smiled at the crowd around him and handed the coin back, thanking the man again. The man bowed and applauded too. Jesus nodded politely to Eleazar as he moved past him. Eleazar just stood motionless. Caiaphas was in the office when Eleazar returned a few minutes later, looking thoughtful. "Did Jesus reject paying taxes?" asked Caiaphas. The stir in the crowd suggested some excitement. "He answered the question, and he didn't answer it," replied Eleazar enigmatically. "What?" replied Caiaphas. "I thought he could only go one way or the other." "That's what I thought too," admitted Eleazar. "Jesus said, 'Pay back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's.'" The high priest looked at Eleazar and then laughed softly. "Oh, I see," said Caiaphas. "Oh, that is very clever of him." "And the crowd saw the significance?" "They did," nodded Eleazar. "Jesus effectively told us that we'd better pay back Caesar as Caesar deserves. Remember Mattathias' words as he died in the history of the Maccabees' revolt? Pay back the Gentiles in full. I think Judah the Galilean called for resistance to Roman taxes too. Didn't he say they were a form of slavery?" Caiaphas shook his head. "Pay back Caesar not least for all the Hebrew blood he spilled. Every Hebrew in the place would have understood what Jesus meant." "Exactly," said Eleazar glumly. "The Hebrews would have heard that as a call to revolution. The Romans would have heard a request for obedience. Giving God what is God's is significant too, Caiaphas scowled. But the revolution Jesus the Galilean has in mind seems completely different from the one Judah the Galilean had in mind. Or the Maccabees. Caiaphas looked pointedly at Eleazar. Jesus' brand of giving God the glory could destroy us all unless we stop him. Either that, or the Lord Almighty is doing something very new and we are missing it completely. Thank you very much for listening. If you would like to read more about why the events of Easter unfolded the way they did, then you can get an electronic or a paper copy of Blood of Innocents at bloodofInnocents.com or through my publisher at www.troubadour.co.uk, where you can also read reviews and some of the book itself in advance. I hope you'll listen to next week's broadcast too, which will be released on Sunday the 28th of March. Until then, goodbye and every blessing.